What gave each of you the courage to meet each other when Arno suggested it?
All right. So I was exhausted. Hate takes a lot of effort and energy out of the things that you can put towards more important things in your life, like being a husband and being a father and living a life that's not all about myself and my shortcomings and the messed up things that are going on with me. It was just as easy to accept and to put myself in the opportunity to have a meaningful life that, compelled me and motivated me to make those decisions. So.
I think, can you hear me back there? Okay. For me, it was actually not a courageous thing, it was an obligation. I came after 9/11. I was welcomed by Southern Christian white members of a church in Clarkston in the South, and right after that, I was a Muslim refugee. And now we hear like people don't want refugee to be here. I could have made two choices: either become the cardiologist, live in a very nice neighborhood, and be an undercover immigrant and refugee, just ride the wave, knowing that I'm not going to be affected, because if I get harassed, I could call a lawyer, I could afford a lawyer, I'm educated. But there's many people who don't have that privilege, so it was an obligation to reach out to the other side that hate us and say like, what's wrong? Like, why now? Why not then? So that's the reason I guess I took this kind of almost hard operation.
So the film was inspired by, or kind of the conviction to make it by what happened in Charlottesville in August 2017. And we wanted to tell kind of the positive side of that story, if that was possible. And that's why we focused on Clarkston, because it's a community where people from every race, ethnicity, religion actually get along in peace. And then this whole thing happened where Haval and Chris became friends, and it brought the film full circle. So at first, Haval, and there are two other refugee women characters in the film too, but at first we were mostly following Haval around for like a year and a half of his life because he was on what I call a crusade to end Islamophobia, which is a great reason to follow this amazing man. And can you explain what happened when you met Chris and where you kind of came up with the term American refugee and how you changed your direction on how you're going to use your voice?
Yeah, the question, I think about everything like kind of in a medical term. There is a growing symptoms of hate. What is the disease process behind it? And it's important to think about it and go ask the question, like, why all of a sudden, like when Trump's getting elected, everyone's like all of a sudden hating refugee and immigrants, which is a country of immigrants. So, Chris was someone that I thought like, let me go to his town and figure out. And I remember when I drove into his small town and then I walked into his apartment and saw how his community lived, I'm like, of course you should vote for Trump and of course you should hate us. You look at TV, you see refugee coming in, getting nice apartment, fed well, everyone's welcoming them, and nobody cares about you guys in these small towns. Like the people, like I walk into this small haven congregation, they have no food. They're getting like peanut butter sandwiches to homeless people so they could talk to them about addiction. Just put your mindset in that. Like you're watching TV, seeing someone like me coming in and getting all the resources. So automatically, like this group, like the KKK and white supremacists, will feed on that poverty and be like, hey, look at those guys. They're getting treated better than you. But the way we could solve it, I could be the person to be a service to him. Like, I came here and I got all this help, but I'm coming back to help you guys. And that's why I call them the American refugees. They're stuck in these small towns without resources and help. It's like being a refugee camp. You just can't leave. What are you going to do? There's no jobs there. You can't go to a different city. And now I used to speak a lot about refugees. Now I speak about rural America. Because if we want to change the vote and the people's way of thinking, we have to go back to these areas.
And going back to Women's Day, Chris, looking at your wife right there, Can you tell us how you ended up, you showed in the clip how you found the KKK by Googling. Can you talk about how Melissa and what inspired you to get out of the KKK?
So, like, I was real open about my involvement with, the movement, and, I didn't really care who knew about it. And there was an incident that you heard talked about in the film there where, my son threw up a white power salute going into Walmart. There was another time when, my wife was almost assaulted holding our 1-year-old baby girl in her hands. I started to see that, I was part of the problem, that, I was contributing to the negativity in this country, and I wasn't doing my fair share to combat it. And, I was just tired of watching the people around me hurt and being a negative force in the world that I lived in. So I knew what I had to do, and I did what I should have been doing the whole time, and made a better choice for myself and my family.
You gotta give her credit. She Googled Arno.
Yeah, she did.
So you Google for hate, she Googled for anti-hate. So
Yeah.
She Googled how to get a loved one out of the KKK. So,
Should give a shout out to Google. I mean, obviously the algorithm.
well,
They're
it
doing-
didn't work
They're doing some
originally.
work more better than Facebook. So
Half and half.
Facebook, the devil.
So what has it meant to you guys to become friends? Can you talk a little bit with everybody about some of the experiences you've shared this year and how you've changed each other's lives?
So when I was overseas, I was just conditioned, to have a certain feeling and a way of doing things. Like I say in the film, every target that I ever shot at was a silhouette of a Muslim or an Islamic, and I come home and I had those feelings still inside of me. I didn't have any knowledge of Islam. I had no desire to educate myself. I was angry because I was out of the service. I felt like I had no camaraderie. So, I mean, like, there was a lot of suffering that I was going through, and that's not meant to justify in any way what it was that I was doing. It's just maybe to help, come up with a prevention, so to speak. But ultimately, like, one of the most fulfilling and rewarding relationships I've ever had with another person next to my wife is with Haval. I have no...
already you married, so.
Haval's wife is also a refugee, and she's also a cardiologist.
I never had any brothers or sisters, and Haval has stepped into that role of my big brother, even though we're the same age. He's definitely bigger in, I mean, just bigger in just the character and caliber of person that he is. Being willing to take the time out of his life to try to work on my heart outside of a physical level, but on a spiritual and an emotional level. He saved my life, and probably my kids, and a lot of other people's, but it's like I can never explain what it is that you've given me just by the opportunity and the chance that you give me. So best relationship ever, man.
Do you guys want to explain the two flags you're each wearing?
Yeah, I think he's giving me too much credit, honestly. Like, he sound like all my VA veteran patient. Like, when I give him medication, he saved my life. I'm like, I just gave you some medicine. Like, so I'm just doing my job. And I want to be very clear. Like, I'm not doing anything special. I'm just doing my job as a privileged refugee. There's a saying in Kurdish. They say, who taught you the alphabet, you owe him a book. And America gave me the opportunity that Germany did not give me, that Syria never gave me, and I'm only returning the favor to make sure this country stays sustained so people like me and my kids and Chris's kids could have a sustainable future and not end up like countries where I came from. That's important. So, yeah, I mean, Chris obviously is wearing the American flag and also the shirt to be a Superman or Captain America.
Yeah.
I'm, I wear the Kurdish flag. I'm a Kurd. The Kurds are one of the second largest ethnic group in the world without a country in the Middle East. And I wear it when I go to work, when I wear it anywhere when I'm speaking. It just creates like a discussion point, and that's important, I think. When people ask, what is that flag? The first, I guess, is India, or they say Mexico. I'm not sure what come with that. And then you start talking about it. I think it's one way indirectly talking about your ethnicity.
So tell everybody about Project Help Heal Love and what you guys are doing together with that, with the 12-step program.
All right.
Well, I think we had the privilege for Washington Post to capture the story we had, and, and they wrote about it, and then everyone's asking what's next. And I told Chris, hold on, we don't want to fall in the trap to create a nonprofit or project prematurely. That's we develop this relationship, and the next thing is, I want you to see what your experience like, who's reaching out to you. Learn from that, and then we could scale it to a system that anyone in the country could actually take that. So we pretty much came up with ideas. He is very motivated. He wants to save the whole world. I'm more like, let's create a process to save one person first. So it's a good dynamic.
We balance each other out.
So Chris actually is working on a 12-step. He went, being a former opiate addict, and a veteran, he went through a 12-step program. So I told him, how about you take that system and create a 12-step Hate Anonymous program? So people who not only in the KKK, there's a lot of people who actually hate Muslim and refugees, and they're like family members, but they about to join an extremist group, but they don't know, they're in between that, and should I or should I not? We want to capture those guys. And he's actually currently working with several, right?
Yeah.
Who reach out to him.
I had right after the story for Brute, I think it was, come out, and we started posting the clips from Clarkston. Just random, out of the blue, I had a guy message me, and he goes, "Hey, Chris, you might not remember me, but we grew up together when we were kids." He goes, "I'm really inspired by what you're doing, and I'm starting to realize that, my kids are starting to inherit my hate as well." And he said, "Now, I haven't went and joined an organization, and I'm not saying that I would." He goes, "But I'm pretty much at the point in my life where I hate everybody that isn't white, Christian, and nationalist." And like I panicked. Like I sent a message to Haval and Erin. I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, we got to do something. And Haval's like, calm down, man. Just talk to him. Just talk to him. And I'm starting to put him through some of the program that we've gotten wrote up so far, and we're making a lot of progress with him.
Yeah. So we kind of testing our ideas. We want to test on an individual level what people like just say on their own, or with the help of someone to leave hate. And at the same time, we're building a curriculum for communities. He came also to an iftar dinner, where a Muslim feed after Ramadan, and he brought a dish. And it's funny. This is a funny story. He brought a dessert, and I told him bring forever, but no alcohol and pork. He brought a yellow pudding. I was like, that's great. You didn't bring anything black or white, so you could have been criticized for it. So he's learning. I'm learning from him. I'm advocating for his community. He's advocating for us. When he sees something hateful on Facebook, he actually goes, shares that person's hateful post and say this is wrong. And that's more powerful coming from him than coming from us, actually, because he's been there, and he's now one on our side.
So we need Nexus's help to make Chris's dream come true, to help not just one person like Haval helped Chris, but to help and change the whole world, and especially starting with our country. So David from Together We Remember shared some statistics with me that there's 20% more people in hate groups today in America, and have been joining them the last 3 years than since they started. And our country is more polarized than since the Civil War. So we're at a really pivotal time in our country, and it's going to take every single one of us to try to create more Chris's. I feel like that's the number one question we get when we talk about this film, and the film is really about this town and refugees, and Chris doesn't live in the town, and Chris isn't technically a refugee, but it's his story too. And everyone's first question when they hear about the film is how can we have more Chris's? So we'd love to hear what you guys all think about creating more Chris's. Thank you.